You're listening to Karen Stanley at the Right Mind Show.
Hey, there we go. We are live. We have the technology. My power went off earlier, so fortunately, I'm back in the room in every shape of the word. So here we are this morning. I'm here with the gorgeous Clare Ford, expert educator, again this morning for the Right Smart podcast. If you're listening, then you won't see our beautiful faces. If you're watching, then you get to see us too. So lucky you. This week, we're going to talk about literacy. It's National Literacy Week. Last week was Book Week, I believe, was it? And World Book Day. So we're going to be talking all things literacy, a topic which is very close to both mine and Clare's hearts.
Yeah.
And we're just going to start off. So what does literacy mean to you, Clare?
Well, for me, I mean, if I take it really a little bit wider even than that, for me, what I've come to realize through teaching and through my own journey of personal development, spiritual development, development as a woman who has a voice, actually, you know, as it is International Women's Day today as well, is actually for me, the most important thing is about being fully expressed, about having tools in my toolkit, whether it's literacy, you know, whether it's through music, through art, whatever. I know we will come back to literacy, but the thing for me that I've realized that motivates me to get out of bed every morning and to show up and to do these lives and to teach young people is to empower them to become fully self-expressed through whatever medium it is that has to happen for them, because everybody is unique in their own way. We all have a reason for being here. And for me, even when we go into mindfulness and meditation, all of that, I have become very aware, of course, that thoughts are words. So for me, everything starts with the power of a word. Everything starts with the power of a word, the energy of that word, the frequency of that word, the hidden meaning behind the word, the actual meaning of the word, you know, how we control our thoughts and our emotions, which controls our actions, which controls our results, which controls how we want to lead our lives and what kind of lives we're empowering others to lead. And it all starts with acknowledging the power of the word. So that's why for me, literacy is mega important, because I'm like, okay, how can I give people tools to harness the power of words? And that is, of course, through teaching literacy, teaching writing, obviously reading, speaking, all of those things, communication, language, and literacy. But it starts with understanding the power of words. What about you? What does it mean for you, Karen?
Well, we had a little rant off air, didn't we, before I came on? And for me, you know, it's very easy to imagine that literacy is just reading and writing. And part of the problem in schools, I feel at the moment, is that literacy is taught as a discrete subject within very rigid boundaries, and you must know that that's a fronted adverbial, and you must know whether you've used a time adverbial. Nobody really cares, I'm here to tell you, shock horror. But you know, it's about so much more than that. Everything in life comes from language, doesn't it? Well, you know, from the very first moment you're born, you learn to, like you say, express yourself through the spoken word, and literacy is the spoken word, isn't it? And how you record it, how you express it, how you convey it, how you share it. But actually everything comes from language and really experience. So again, going back to my slightly hysterical rant pre our broadcast, part of my problem with literacy is that we're teaching so much of the techniques and so much of the nitty-gritty and the you know, quite frankly, the sort of brain clutterers of literacy, when actually, if you read a piece of writing that comes from the heart, that comes from someone who's a good orator, who's someone who can verbally kind of share their thoughts, express themselves, and, you know, get their point across, that's much more powerful than anything you could write by making sure you've got X, Y, and Z in your writing. Don't get me, I'm not poo-pooing the importance of good grammar or spelling or whatnot. I'm not saying that.
But they're just tools. They're just tools. They're means. They're means to an end. It's like an electrician going to look at a job and going, okay, this is, and I don't know anything about electrics, but going, okay, this is the problem. Here's my tool bag.
Yeah.
I'm going to just take out what I need to get that job done. And I think that this is the thing with literacy, and we'll go on to talk about this in a little bit about the different forms of literacy. But you need to know what you need to do to get the job done, and
Yeah.
of course it needs to land. There needs to be a reason behind it. This is the thing that annoys me in school so much, is they say to people, well, just write a story because it's Friday. Like, no, this is why I get children to write a story, because they create a book which someone else is going to read. That's the purpose for
Yeah.
writing a story, is to share it,
And
right?
also direct experience. We teach literacy as a very secular, like we're doing literacy today. Well, actually, you never need to
Everything.
say those words, because literacy should weave its way through science, through
Everything.
maths, through geography, through history. And
Yeah.
also, I have a real issue. We're going to write a story today,
Mm.
and even something like we're going to write a diary entry.
Yeah.
Now,
Yeah.
write your diary entry. Well, okay, this child's 7. Probably the most exciting thing they've done this morning is clean their teeth and put on their school clothes.
Yeah.
Then they went home and played on their Xbox. That's not going to set the world on fire.
No.
And also, then they're going, well, what shall I write, miss? I don't really know
Yes.
what to write. I've got nothing to write about.
No.
So really, for me, it's about rich experience
Yeah.
that then develops that language, that
Yes.
talk, that speak, that then
Yes.
feeds into the writing. And I always used to say to the kids that if they say to me, oh, my handwriting's not very good, I'm not very good, and I say, I'm not interested in any of that.
Yeah.
What I'm interested in before you do anything are your ideas. Because
Yes.
if you've got no ideas, you've got no
Got no
writing.
content. No, that's
You've
right.
got nothing, have you?
That's right. I mean, I was looking up a few stats, before our talk today, and interesting to find that Finland is at the moment the most literate nation. Now, the thing that's interesting about that is, of course, the Finnish don't start formal schooling until their children are 8 years old.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So UK is down at 17, and the USA is actually at 26. Right. So why are we all trying to get our children to write and to read and to do all of this? Why aren't we talking to them about these ideas, about these enriched experiences, which is what countries like Finland do? Right? They have all this outside learning and all of that, which I know you're passionate about, linking with literacy, all that mindset stuff, all that emotional stuff, so that people can express themselves. And then, of course, you're literate because you know what to put from your head out of your mouth and down onto paper. Like, it's not rocket science, but why is no one doing this?
Because we're too hung up on the technicalities, because those are the things that we can measure, or the government can measure.
Yeah.
They can get all these lovely little tick boxes and say, oh, you've used 3 fronted adverbials and a partridge in a pear tree in your writing, therefore it must be good writing. Not necessarily. Not necessarily.
So, Karen, what do you think? I know you've worked in many different schools and many different areas where you've seen, different levels of poverty and deprivation, and children with special educational needs and very difficult backgrounds. I know that actually that's something that you're passionate about, helping children from that kind of situation. What do you think is the impact of having poor literacy in a community or in a family? Like, I know we're bemoaning, oh, you don't know your fronted adverbials and all of that, but what happens if people are switching off from literacy and kind of thinking, well, I can't be bothered to read to my child. It doesn't matter about texting; they understand what I mean if I'm not spelling properly, and we kind of, I feel that actually we, as a humanity, we're dumbing down our language anyway. By taking these kinds of shortcuts and things. But what do you think are some of the impacts of poor literacy, and therefore why we need good literacy to counterbalance those?
Well, I think it goes back to our earlier point. It's not about reading and writing, it's about communicating.
Yeah.
And if you can't, if you don't have the emotional and sort of language literacy to communicate your feelings, how many youngsters are suffering from sort of poor mental health, or get themselves into trouble because the only emotion that they can adequately express is anger, because it's the easiest one to go F off, I'm not doing that, isn't it? It doesn't require a lot of literacy to do that. So I think, sort of on a serious point, how do we feel when we can't express ourselves, when people can't understand us? Look at what's going on in the world today. There's so much misinformation, and a lot of that is because people don't really truly understand what's coming their way. You know, we live in this sort of world where everything is sort of behind a bit of a facade, the whole social media thing. We sort of think that if Brenda on Facebook said it, it must be true, even though it's absolute balderdash, you know. So, you know, there's no real kind of it puts you on the back foot, because it stops you really exploring, it stops you asking questions, it stops you understanding those answers. And again, like reading in school, we teach the skills of reading. We teach, you know, we're gonna, this is our favorite author of the week, even though some of the children it might not be their favorite author, or, you know, whatever. But actually, we talk about reading for pleasure, but I've seen it time and time again, not enough true reading for pleasure goes on. You know, there's always a book review afterwards where you might as well just, you know, take all of the pleasure out of it. You know, there's no sort of lounging around on cushions with your feet off, you know, eating grapes like some sort of Roman whilst devouring a book and watching the world go by. That's what reading for pleasure's about.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, we haven't got time for that. We haven't got time for that.
You have to skim and scan. Quick, get to the end.
Yeah, quick, do the book review and we'll move on. Let's go on to
Move on.
let's move on to another author that you're not interested in. We'll do it next week.
I know.
But it's just, you know.
Having said that, though, joking aside, of course, there has been all this stuff about book censorship, book banning in schools, you know, things like that, which I think, you know, I think it's a very tricky road that to go down when nations and countries and communities start doing that kind of stuff. Of course, there was lots of book burnings, wasn't there, in the war? There's been different nations who have banned certain books and propaganda and even whole parts of their history, so that the next generations growing up don't access that and don't have that. And that, of course, is you know, I think is obviously completely tragic. And, you know, having that kind of censorship is really bad, that people don't have a choice. They don't have. So I think really we need to be teaching young people about critical thinking. So like you say, well, just because one person says that, okay, then see what another person says, then see what another person says. Look at history from different perspectives, you know, understand these critical thinking skills and start to analyze what it is you're actually reading, rather than just skimming over it and answering a few comprehension questions. Like we're not giving children the space to stop and ask why. And that's one of the most important questions that needs to be asked, you know.
Or to feel fulfilled. You know, if someone said to me, right, every day for the next 6 months, Karen, you've got to read this book about motor racing, that wouldn't make me love reading. It'd make me hate reading. And it's not actually that I hate reading. I've got a massive penchant for, you know, so I just use that as it. But I've no interest in motor racing. It's not something that floats my boat. I'm not against it or for it, but it's not something that interests me.
No.
So if I was told that that's all I can read, and that's a bit of an extreme example, but that would put me off reading, wouldn't it? You know, and sometimes for some families as well, if you imagine you've got parents whose own personal literacy is poor, the thought of reading a book to their child every night must be terrifying. Because it's like, I don't know, I think we talked about him, the guy on the repair shop, didn't we? What's his name? Oh, he's the guy, I can't remember his name, but he presents the repair shop, and he's massively dyslexic, and he bluffed his whole kid's childhood reading them a story at bedtime. He couldn't read. He didn't learn to read till he was 50. And bless him, because he was vilified, because he was labelled as stupid and dyslexic, and it was in a time when, you know, and he said, look at me now, I've got my own autobiography out because someone just wrote it for me. He said, and who's got the last laugh now? You know, but he's blagged so much of it. He got into university by copying and pasting assignments. So he's obviously not unintelligent. I mean, it's absolutely amazing what he's achieved. But so you think about, it comes from there's a lot of fear attached to poor literacy. There's a lot of shying away from stuff. There's a lot of, you know, imagine if you get letters into your home. I was watching a program the other week. Some guy had come out of prison, and he had to go to his parole meetings, and his wife, he was really trying to stay out of trouble. He's got a young family, all of that. Bless him, he'd grown up a tough life. His wife is having to talk him to the parole meeting because he can't even read the front of the bus.
Wow.
You know, and that's when you think, good God, really, in this day and age, he's saying to write, it's an M and a, you know, what number, where do I need to go? You know, so there's so much disadvantage
Yeah.
associated with poor literacy. It has, if you
Impacts your whole life,
can't
your
balance
health.
your bills, you can't read a doctor's letter, you
No,
can't balance your books, you can't read, talk about healthy living, you can't even read what's in the recipe book,
no,
so
gosh,
it's a real, the impacts can be massive. And
massive.
that fulfill and that feeling of self-worth,
Yeah,
that feeling like, well, I'm useless, I can't read, so I'm
yeah,
hopeless anyway, so what's the point? I mean, that's
gosh.
horrible, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah.
Mm,
So how can we raise literacy levels then? I know that the UN, for example, one of their sustainable development goals was actually to get higher levels of literacy across the world generally, because it's so important, for the reasons that we've been talking about. So what can be done to improve literacy levels? I know I've got a few little tools up my sleeve, but tell us about some of the things that you do to help kids improve
I
their literacy.
think stop focusing on the evidence and focus on the actual act. So
Mm.
don't worry about, for teachers out there who are under a massive pressure, it's all about if you didn't record it, it didn't happen. That really gets my goat. It's not about whether you recorded it. It's about the value of what went in. It's about more oral storytelling. Speaking and listening used to be a part of the curriculum in its own right. When we
Yeah,
sat down, we played circle games, we just chatted about this and that and something else, talking, telling stories orally. If you can't read it, you can still tell it. I say
yeah,
to kids, you don't have to write it down. Tell me it. I don't care how just, you know, engage me in however which way. You do a dance, do a song. It doesn't matter to me,
that's right. Well,
So
I did something on comics last week for that very
yeah,
reason. I said, well,
yeah,
there's a storyteller inside everybody. You don't actually have to write it down. You
mm,
can tell a story through visual, through graphic novels.
yeah, yeah.
I call those comics.
And
So
put your money where your mouth is my my other advice. Not very technical. If you say reading for pleasure is important, make it important.
yeah,
Don't make them do a book review. Don't make them, have. Do you remember when I was a? Well, you don't remember when I was a kid, but when I was a kid,
I
we
probably
used to
do.
have yeah, we used to have the mobile library come.
Mm-hmm.
And it used to be like a big old fun bus, and it would turn up outside my school. It would be there out of school hours and it would be there in school hours. So sometimes the teacher would take us out onto the bank and just
Yeah,
sit and read books from the library. My mum would take us down to the library and we'd get books. There are school libraries that I've worked in schools where the library never gets used.
oh my
Oh,
God,
we haven't got time to go to it's our scheduled library time, at 2 o'clock on a Thursday afternoon. Those places should be places of a real guilty pleasure where
yes,
parents come in, people sit around, they laugh, they watch the movie version, they read the film version,
yeah,
they talk about the book, they sing the theme tune, hymn the theme tune. There's no writing goes on, but there's discussion and there's joy and there's exploration and
yes,
and also do you know what? I really didn't like that book. I
yeah,
didn't think it was interesting at all. Well, why? That's okay to say that. Why? Well, I
yeah,
didn't like that character, or I didn't think the story was very interesting. All of that discussion
yeah,
is crucial.
definitely,
And
definitely,
creative stuff that leads to literacy
yeah,
for
yeah,
me. What
yes.
about you? What's your
Yes, it's putting those things in at the beginning, the right
yeah,
ingredients, isn't it? Which is and having that curiosity around different books, and and also modeling the behavior, like you say.
mm,
Even in the home, you can't expect your children to read if they just see you on your phone,
no, no,
right?
no,
Where are you? When are you reading? Right? When
mm,
are you discussing books?
yeah,
When are you showing them that adults read?
mm,
um, I think for pleasure, as you say, not just
yeah,
because you've got to read letters coming through the door that are demanding money. When do we sit down and read for pleasure, right?
mm, mm,
And do you model that to your children? I think that's really, really important. That's
mm,
a massive thing. I also think as well that to improve literacy levels, like I intimated before, for me, there has to be a relevance. Yes, a love of learning. Yes, a love of reading for pleasure, of course. But for writing and for spelling and for grammar and all of that, there has to be a relevance. In
yeah,
fact, for any learning, there has to be a
yeah,
relevance to the
yeah,
student. So
yeah,
the reason why, just because the government says so or it's in the new curriculum, is just not a good enough reason.
no,
It's
no,
not good enough. So
no,
whenever I do writing with students, for example, if we're doing instructional writing, and writing to inform, we actually do that as a recipe book, so that they can, and they an actual book, and so they can have that in their kitchen and literally take it down, go through how to do or whatever it is, go through the things. Does it work? Has my cake turned out okay, or has it not? Have I followed my own instructions, right? Make it meaningful, make it relevant, make it practical, so that there's actually a reason for doing it. Like you say, the diary entry, what's the point of doing that on term 1, week 2 on a Friday? That's not what diary entry is about. It's an ongoing process of self-reflection. It's almost better to put that in the PHSE curriculum. There's nothing
and
to
it's
do.
about, it's like you said, going back to your electrician, it's like turning up to do the job with no tools.
Yes,
You've got to feed it first, haven't you, for it to grow.
That's right. You've got to be able to talk about your emotions, understand that it's even an emotion, and understand that that can be represented in different ways, colors, numbers, wherever, different parts of your body, and, all of that. To have that self-reflection and that emotional literacy actually has to come way before doing the journal diary entry.
And it's the transfer of skills that I think what you're saying as well. Writing isn't a discrete thing. Reading isn't a discrete thing. It feeds into every single area of your life, every subject, every topic. And so by exploring it and, really kind of delving into it, you'll be able to transfer those skills. You won't only do good writing when you get your writing book out. You'll be able to do good writing across
everywhere. That's right. That's the thing. I love that, Karen. So if people wanted to explore writing with you at the moment, what is it that that parents or educators could find that could help them with taking their writing in, perhaps on a different tangent?
For me, my thing that I want people to sign up to and to join my cult of creativity, I'm trying to create my own very positive cult. Is my website, which is www.writesmarteducation.co.uk, and that's very low cost. It's £5 a month, which is absolutely, mainly a cup of coffee a month, and it's full of resources. So whatever topic you're doing. So say, for example, you're doing a topic on rivers, whether you're a home educator, whether you're a teacher just looking for inspirational creativity, what is there is there's lots of resources that help you to find those links, help you to find that cross-curricular kind of purpose. It gives you creative activities that you can do that will give you lots to talk about, that will give you lots to write about. There's prompts for writing, there's ideas for writing, there's creative ideas for writing. So it's not all about writing, but it's about that whole creative process which builds literacy in every subject, in every area, really. So that would be my, you can dip in and out. And if you're doing like I say, if you're doing a topic on woodlands, one on woodlands, that's one of my favorite topics, actually. And there's lots of video. I've filmed the woodlands in every season and in the snow and all of that. So if you were doing a topic, you don't have to follow it rigidly like a scheme. In fact, I don't want you to do that. I want you to go, oh, that's a really great activity. I can do that. And actually that one from the rivers section, that really works well in here too. So it's about, it's creative tapas, like tapas.
Yeah, lovely. Yes, exactly. Choose the bits that you need for that time. Oh, I love that. That's amazing.
So what is it that people can get from you? Because I know they can get lots of
so at the moment what I'm doing is something I call a complete writing course, where I'm offering children from the ages of 9 to 13 the opportunity to learn to write for 3 key purposes, which I feel underline everything across the board that they're going to need to learn, which is why I call it complete. So they learn to write to persuade, to inform, and to entertain. I call it as easy as pie. Persuade, inform, and entertain. And once they learn those skills, they can then adapt those skills for all the different scenarios which they're going to come across, whether it's in science, whether it's in history, whether it's personal statements, whatever it is. But once they can learn to write to inform, persuade, and entertain, then they've basically tackled those different reasons for writing. And so that's what I'm doing at the moment, the complete writing course for kids. So that's application only. people would need to hop on a call with me to discuss that. But my DMs are open, and you can contact me via my website, which is switchedonglobal.com. You can just see if you're looking up there.
Yeah.
So yeah, get in touch. Let's get that going, because these are critical skills. These are critical foundational skills which our young people need now more than ever to understand the world around them and to understand their place in it, really. So,
and you know, for that sense of fulfillment, that sense of achievement, that sense of you know, realizing your dreams, you know, achieving your full potential, all of that, you know, which is, you know, whether you're a brain surgeon or you know a bin man or a carer or a whatever job you go into, it doesn't matter, as long as you have that fulfillment and that kind of sense of achievement, that sense of purpose. And that's really what literacy can give you, isn't it? And it's not as simple as just you know, reading and writing, is it? It's about, well, it's everything, isn't it, really? And you think even the earliest man, you know, I wonder how quickly they learnt to communicate. I bet it was quick. I bet it was quick, because it's everything, isn't it? How do you interact if you can't communicate?
Well, that's the thing, and then this is why I put such an emphasis on comics the other week, because I you know, the earliest I did some research on that, and I think it was something like the written word only came 3,000 years after the first caveman drawing. Something like that, 300 years or something. So, but like, I couldn't believe it. It's like, wow, people have been communicating with, obviously, sounds, hand signals, and paintings before words were actually written down.
So and that's the fundamental bit, isn't it? It's the language.
So that's amazing. So
Yeah.
this is why the oral storytelling is so important. You know, that self-reflection is so important.
Yeah.
The conversation is so important. The curiosity, you know, all of that stuff is so important, because that is foundational to the writing that comes afterwards.
Yeah, that's so true. And you know, it's such a wonderful thing, you know, when you've got that gift of literacy, it can really enrich your life, can't it?
It's so enriching and empowering, you know. I mean, you know, when people are literate, families are literate, and nations are literate, it can help to lift them out of poverty. You know, it can empower women and girls, because actually there are more men in the world who are literate than women, right? In different societies. You know, and it just improves the community, the wider community. You can give back, you can contribute. You know,
you look at some of the most powerful speeches of all time. You know, Martin Luther King, all of that. It's literacy, isn't it? It's that.
You know, can move nations.
Yeah.
You know? That's what I say, it's the power of words. So, oh my gosh. So I've loved this conversation, Karen.
I know. So let's surge ahead with our power to take over the literacy world.
Absolutely.
Bring nothing but joy. But
I love your creativity cult. Count me in.
Yes, only good things will happen in this.
Yes, good.
So if you do want to help your child to achieve great things with their literacy, then Clare Ford, she is your girl. She's very positive, she's very knowledgeable, and she's really up with helping children to achieve their full potential, which is what we're all about, really. And you can find her switchedonglobal.com. She's always open for messages and questions and comments. We both love you to get in touch. You can find me at Right Smart Education, or on Facebook at Right Smart Education. You can find me at Karen Stanley Author as well. I'm floating around all over the place, and I'm always keen for people to get in touch. So if you've enjoyed listening today and you'd like to contribute, then please do. And if we can help in any way, we always will endeavour to do that. So you've been listening to me, Karen Stanley, and Clare Ford, passionate about literacy and all things positive. Thanks for listening. And we'll see you all again soon.
See you soon. Bye.
Take care.
You're listening to Karen Stanley at the right